Hello and welcome to Michael and Ivanka's Grand Podcast. Two friends who have a calendar reminder to talk to each other every other Friday, but think it's a conversation worth sharing with whatever minuscule fragment of the world will listen. My name's Michael Forrest.
And I'm Ivanka Magic.
And this week we're going to talk about basically I just finished Bloody Brilliant Women by Cathy Newman. And as I was reading it, I sort of like every so often would highlight a paragraph that I was like, what? And I thought it'd be quite fun to discuss that with you. But so we'll call this could be about just women and women that are brilliant, but also just some things that we might not realise that women have suffered in the past. And let's just like talk about that a bit. Things like that.
Sounds delightful. I have also, to add to the bloody brilliant women list, I've got a game called Fierce Women. So we're going to have bloody brilliant fierce women, fiercely brilliant women, wonderfully brilliant, something like that. Women,
what these bloody brilliant women have overcome to get to slowly fight back. So yeah, let's do it. Hi, Ivanka. Thoughts? Feelings? Where are you coming from?
I am excited about this topic.
Yeah. Okay. No, sorry, that was the how's your week bit.
I know. This week, okay. Sorry. Thoughts, feelings.
How's it going?
Thoughts,
where are you coming
feelings.
from?
Where I come from?
Anything in your notes?
No. I didn't do any notes. I tried to get. I was like, Siri, record a note, and it went.
Yeah, forget that.
I can't do that. I was like, well, it's fucking useless. You
just
are.
Got to get your phone out and just get the notes out.
Yeah, but what if you're cooking or you got wet hands or you're dealing with a child, blah, blah,
Okay.
Just
don't have wet hands.
This is another thing for the list of the things bloody brilliant fierce women have to overcome.
What, like wet hands?
Doing things, looking after. You just think I'll wander around all day, get my phone out, writing notes. Fuck's sake.
Well, I mean, I think you're underestimating your freedom if you think you can't write a quick note.
You say that, but the minute you get a phone out, I get this little hand comes out and goes, Mummy, I want to look at pictures. Though I did.
Get a notebook.
And then she wants to draw on it. It's not that easy.
Okay.
Try living with a 4-year-old. What did she say to me? She started using the phrase, I can't handle this.
Oh, God.
I mean, I can't handle this. I'm like, what does that mean?
Oh, Lord.
It's not fair. What does that mean? It's not fair. So it's like a repeater. It's like a little recording device. But I don't know who says I can't handle it, because nobody, neither Nick nor I, we definitely don't do that. Anyway,
you can handle everything.
We can take it all on. We're fine. So yes, good week. No notes, but I'm happy. It's very hot.
Yes, here too.
I'm quite happy though with my eco adjustments to my house in terms of the insulation. It requires a little bit of management. You have to remember to shut those windows and open these ones and make sure the sun's not actually coming in. But actually, we're doing very well without aircon. And walking into the house, it is degrees cooler than outside, which is all you really need. You don't need it to be 18. You just need it to be not 35.
Yes.
So I'm quite pleased.
Good.
Yes, there you go. That's a good story. Insulation for the win.
How am I, do you ask?
How are you, Michael? I do ask.
Move it along. Move it along.
Michael, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good. Things on my list this week. Do you know those? In films and stuff, they've always got those someone sticks a USB stick in a computer and it like hacks it, and you're like, what?
So I need one.
That doesn't seem right. But I found out how those work in real life. It's because it doesn't. It's not a memory stick. It pretends to be a keyboard and then just types.
No.
Because So the computer just goes, oh yeah, a keyboard, and just so then you just make it open a terminal window and start typing. So they do work. Those are real. Isn't that mad?
That is mad. Should we get one or two? One each. go round putting it into
I
computers.
thought it was like, well, if auto-exec whatever doesn't work, then how's that going to do anything? But no, keyboard. Son of a bitch.
Looking at the high street, I'm going down, and I can't spend it up above me, and I'm not gonna do everything I always try to do, recognizing it.
Let's talk about
Women.
I'm going to scroll through, right? You know, so as I'm reading this book, Bloody Brilliant Women, it's like every so often you get a little insight into just how gross the situation has been for ages. So the first one I've seen is like, this is about Gertrude Bell, but it says, born in 1868, the daughter of a progressive, well-connected industrialist, Bell became the first woman to achieve first-class honours, though not, of course, a degree, women weren't allowed to collect those yet, in modern history at Lady Margaret Hall, Oxford, despite having a tutor who insisted women sit with their backs to him.
Fucking hell. Sorry,
like
Auntie Annette, but seriously, it's going to be a sweary one.
So this professor, like, please, any women in the group, obviously you're not allowed any actual degree or anything either, but sit with your back to me because I can't handle it.
On what grounds?
Just the women. But that just comes back. But then you've got like the Simpsons writing room where that guy was, I can't remember which one it was, but like not wanting to hire any women because he didn't want to get distracted.
I mean,
Like,
but
that's into the 90s. Like that's still happening, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But, you know.
But that says so much more about the male psyche. It's like, seriously, mate, if, you can't control your thoughts and urges, then you're the one that needs some help, my friend. It's like...
Yeah, like, what are you trying to avoid there?
Yeah.
Like, is it, I'm going to see a woman, and then yet the narrative is that women are over-emotional and, like, irrational. It's like...
It's like,
which is it?
It doesn't get much more irrational than turn your back to me while I teach you. Because otherwise I'll get distracted or something, or you'll learn, or fuck knows. Anyway, that's a good story. I like it.
Skipping through to the next one, page 40. Well,
Gertrude's a strong name, though, isn't it?
Oh, God. So, pity. Right, so who's this? Sorry, each time I've got to, like, figure out who it is. So something about the late Victorian expectation was that women would suppress their intellects the better to boost men's sense of their own superior brain power. So this is about Ruskin. Who's Ruskin? Sorry, it's like I've got to scroll back and find because it just says Ruskin.
Some egomaniac, insecure knobhead.
Oh yeah. I mean, this is a book about that sort of thing.
No, yesterday I gave a woman advice. I said, look, he's a total egomaniac from South America. You're just going to have to let him. Depends what kind of a meeting you want to have. You either be aware of his ego or don't. So let's not. But anyway, tell me.
Okay. So this is about. Okay, right. So for women being both altruistic and obedient by nature, they were best employed in the home, making their husbands happy and looking after any children. Even if their husbands stop loving them, they must continue to love these men out of loyalty. Through passionate duty, love springs higher as grass grows taller round a stone. So but this isn't the bit that I've highlighted. Like what became known as the doctrine of separate spheres, that women belonged at home while men could cope with the demands of the workplace, found its most famous expression in an essay by the writer and art critic John Ruskin called "Sesame and Lilies," published in 1865. The job of a woman, Ruskin argues, is to patrol the domestic front. Her intellect, such as it is not for invention or creation, but for sweet ordering, arrangement, and decision. But then it talks about his personal life. It's pity Ruskin's poor wife. Indeed, his own marriage to Euphemia Effie Gray was annulled after 6 years on the grounds of non-consummation. Supposedly, the sight of her pubic hair and menstrual blood on their wedding night disgusted him.
Oh, my goodness. He's got problems.
Yeah, this guy was setting the tone.
Jesus. And he was allowed to write things, was he?
He created a doctrine. Well, he expounded this doctrine. So it's people like that who are responsible for a lot of the divides we currently, the arbitrary categorizations that people are currently suppressed by. A man that cannot handle 6 years. Imagine 6 years in and you're still like,
Oh no.
Jesus, mate.
People just need more therapy, Michael, don't they?
People need a lot of therapy,
People
don't they?
just need more honesty, more therapy, more self-awareness. Come on, let's have another one.
All right, so this is about a factory. So Adelaide Anderson's 1922 study, Women in the Factory, describes how the dust inhaled by women spinning silk caused them to cough up silkworms.
That is disgusting.
We may need a content warning on this one. I don't want to do a content warning about the prospect of menstrual blood being brought up, but coughing up silkworms maybe.
That seems pretty disgusting.
Can you? That's nice working conditions, isn't it?
When was this? What year? What century?
This is a 1922 study. So this is less than 100 years ago. There was women in factories coughing up live bugs, silkworms.
Oh my God. And this is, anyone who argues against workers' rights needs to cough up some silkworms.
Yeah, and I saw that the other day. Like when right-wing rage led to the KKK, left-wing rage led to the Weekend.
Yeah. Yeah. We need a load more left-wing rage. Raging left-wing rage. Actual out. Anyway, go on. I'm enjoying this.
I'm happy to count myself as a radical leftist. Thank you, Donald, because I know that does not mean what you think it means. It does not mean that I am perpetrating leftist violence. It means that I am doing quite the opposite. Here's a good one.
Radically loving of all of humanity. Anyway.
All right, here's a good one. By the 1880s, public transport was making it easier for women to get around, but there were still places where they needed to be accompanied. Women who walked the streets themselves were seen as either endangered or dangerous. As one historian puts it, and as a rule, a lady was simply not supposed to be seen aimlessly wandering the streets or eating alone. Women do not eat alone.
Because that is dangerous.
So maybe that one wasn't as good.
It is, though. Because it's like that somebody would even contemplate that. It's like so many levels, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like all of these are like what?
Eating. Come on, eating.
I don't know if you've noticed, officer, but over there there's a woman eating alone on that bench. I think you should probably find out who her husband is and
who she belongs to.
Walk her home. Take her to prison to be picked up by her husband at the shortest opportunity. Let's talk about medical schools now. Medical schools were rather conservative and distinctly queasy about women attending classes in anatomy and physiology, as if the sight of a dead man's penis might be too much for the poor delicate creatures. The more successful the women became in their studies, the more the violence against them escalated. Mud was thrown at them and fireworks attached to the doors of their lodgings. On the 18th of November 1870, the women arrived to sit an anatomy exam at Surgeons' Hall, only to find a drunken mob blocking their entry with a live sheep wandering around the room. The none too subtle message was that a woman was as unwelcome there as a farmyard animal. The unruffled lecturer advised his class to take no notice of the animal, saying that it had more sense than those who had sent it in.
Well, that was something. Allies. Women need allies in this world.
Allies would be good, wouldn't it?
But why? What causes all this anger? Why so angry? Do you remember, again, I don't know if I've done it on podcast, when I inherited that team at Canonical, and one of my not long, didn't stay a team member for very long. It's like, think what it's like for me. They say to me, here is this girl. She looks nice. She's your new boss. Angry. You can see that, but I don't understand where it comes from. I don't understand the anger that some men feel against women. I don't know where the anger comes from. That sort of like drunken mob. Why? I mean, it's very difficult when you're I've had this conversation, like my husband, my brother, I'm surrounded by men who are, if they don't like you or they're horrible to you, it's not because you're a woman, it's because you avoid them. Do you know what I mean? It's as simple as that. It's like, and so, these are kind of not, but they're generally not discriminating. So what is it that makes you so angry that you will actually feel violent just because somebody's living their lives?
Yeah, because you see someone as an other, right? And it's like, oh, there is someone who's very obviously an other, and like, oh, they're going to ruin it for me. They're going to ruin it, and now I'm not allowed to make sexist jokes anymore. And they're my funniest jokes. I guess it's like, like inclusivity sort of feels like an attack on your freedom if you don't realise what it's giving to you. It's just make America great again. It's just like, oh, let's have it back, Helen. We didn't have to think about people. We could just all be white together. Yeah,
same thing. Yeah. It's just that the anger I find quite remarkable. And have I got any others?
Oh, loads. I thought I was running out, but I've got a few more. If women today wrestle with the gender pay gap, in the early 20th century, it was a yawning chasm. So this one I just chose more because it was like, ugh. Female civil servants were paid no more than £200 a year, while their male counterparts earned between £300 and £500. As for job security, most were sacked after the war and replaced with returned services personnel. This post-war demobilisation of women happened across the board. Liberal Prime Minister David Lloyd George put them firmly in their place, declaring, "The workers of today are the mothers of tomorrow." So like a lot of women stepped up during the war, and like it was like, they're good at this, and then they had to sort of go back to being housewives and stuff afterwards, and a lot of them were like, why?
But I like going to work. I find it. I mean, I was brought up in a household that I think was very equal. I saw patterns of equality, but my father did take the time to tell me that life was going to be harder for me because I was a woman and I needed to work harder. So I was made aware of these things, but you just forget how recent it all is. Same with like, the sort of racism in America. We're not talking or the abolition of slavery in some place. These are not things that happened hundreds of thousands of years ago. These are sort of centuries and decades ago that this... Yeah. And it takes... and then, you look at, again, counting your freedoms.
Yeah.
It's very easy for... it's very easy for a woman living a life where she can walk down the street on her own and eat on her own in public... To forget that actually there was a time when that wasn't well, okay.
It's interesting. Like, did you know that what you're doing right now used to be a sign of mental faultiness?
It's like, and then
I was just having a prep.
Yeah, these poor women in like Saudi Arabia and places who still can't go anywhere unless they're, father or brother or husband bring them along. I mean,
So and this book is very like UK, Britain centric. So it's like, I mean, I think we've done okay, but still, it's got a long way to go. But it is strangely recent. Do you want to hear about Mary Stopes?
Yes, I do.
This is the abortion clinic woman who, I mean, it's good that exists, but she wasn't that cool.
Go on then.
In her 1920 book, Radiant Motherhood, Stopes rails against a society that allows the diseased, the racially negligent, the thriftless, the careless, the feeble-minded, the very lowest and worst members of the community to produce innumerable tens of thousands of stunted, warped and inferior infants.
Oh my God, she was a eugenics person.
Yeah, this talk horrifies us now, and if anything, Stopes' views on eugenics became more extreme as she grew older. When her much-loved only son married a woman who wore glasses, she cut him out of her will, outraged that he would consider having children with someone who was, as she saw it, genetically faulty. So sometimes people do the right thing for the wrong reasons.
Gee whiz.
Ooh,
She sounds like a
Mary
regular ray of
Stokes.
sunshine, doesn't she?
She is what a wonderful person. Here's a fun one
Oh, yeah.
about wealth. So this is someone that sort of did well, but on the back of some privilege. I'm just trying to find her first. Nancy Astor, who became Tory MP for her husband Waldorf's constituency of Plymouth Sutton when he moved to the House of Lords. Blah blah blah. This is 1919. To call Astor's life gilded understates her wealth. She divided her time between her country house Cliveden, a townhouse in St James Square, and an array of other residences, including an estate in the Hebrides. Her head gardener at Cliveden made a fresh buttonhole for her every day, which, if she was in London, he would send to her by post. But as the historian Brian Harrison makes clear, she had a gift of empathy and a bunch of good intentions, seeing other women. I thought that was going to end more fun. But basically, I don't know what a buttonhole is, but imagine
a
having
flower to put in your lapel.
Yeah, okay, yeah, but to make a change in the early 20th century, you're going to need to be pretty set up by the sound of it.
So what you're sorry? So the point is that she became an MP, but she was minted.
But she was pretty flipping minted.
But that's the same thing about celebrating the 100 years of the women's vote. Only some women got the vote. You know, white women married over 35 who owned property or something. I can't remember the stats, but the actual definition. But it was a very small percentage of women. But you have to start somewhere. There's there is this thing about, privilege is privilege, regardless of gender, I suppose.
Yes, exactly.
I mean, money helps. Doesn't matter what you're made of,
really
what you look like.
Flipping useful. Wealth is great for making change. Like people who are making change aren't the people that are struggling to survive.
No, but was she willing to make change on behalf of other people though? Let's find out about her. Nancy, what was it? Astor.
I should have just kept reading. She was what we would call nowadays a social liberal, fighting for causes such as widows' pensions and the raising of the age of consent. She enlisted the help of former suffrage activist Ray Strachey to brief her on debates that were raging on the more radical intellectual fringes of the movement. A pragmatic feminist who favoured what she called real old-fashioned, courageous, sensible, solid cup of tea women, Astor was hugely popular in her constituency, remaining MP for Plymouth until she retired in 1945. So that's just an example of a brilliant woman
who was using her power
for good.
Oh, cool. There are some of them about.
Yes. Do you know Eleanor Rathbone? Is that a familiar name?
No.
This is someone I just liked. This was someone who. This is another bit of wealth, funny, interesting people stuff. Born into a wealthy, liberal Liverpudlian shipping family, Rathbone was a former suffragette who had also been the first woman in Liverpool's city council. With her booming voice and old-fashioned manner, she was a strong character with a formidable work ethic. She often had to be reminded to eat and was impatient with what she saw as others' weaknesses, such as the desire to take holidays. Women's problems, she thought, were too often owned by men, seen through their eyes and discussed in their language. Rathbone thought women should be able to seize control of their own lives, and that didn't mean women having to man up. The more I see of some men, especially politicians, the less I want women to adopt their methods and standards of values. It's an argument that resonates from the workplace. Westminster today. Yeah, Eleanor Rathbone, so she's a good one.
Well, that's, I think, part of this thing that's happening with the American, abortion laws creeping in changes, is they're being made by men. And those same men, though, what's fascinating to me about America and what shows that it's so much about control is that their maternity rights are atrocious. So, I think they're only obliged to give you 2 weeks leave after you give birth. It's
nice.
So you want me to force through this pregnancy, but then when the baby turns up, I'm not allowed to spend a year at home breastfeeding it and loving it and cuddling it and, making sure it's okay. It's like actually doing the mothering. I'm just supposed to do, you know what I mean? It's like, it doesn't hang together.
Yeah, it's
not
so gross. And
even maternity laws in the UK there are better ones in the world, but like my mum, who did work and was a teacher, she only had like 6 weeks off when she had me, which is why I was like, I don't know how the hell you got out of the house. It's like I was still sitting on the sofa going, oh my God, what am I supposed to do with this child? It's kind of so the idea of women being in charge of the things women are in charge. How can a man legislate or talk about, anything to do with childbirth? Though, as we know, it's not as painful as kidney stones.
No, so get over it, women.
So sort it out.
Oh God, this is just a depressing. It's a depressing quote from. Let me see. I'm just trying to find the name.
Right.
Vera Douche. Dewey, sorry.
It's quite a
Vera
name.
Dewey. Sorry. With little in the way of support, female conscription placed a massive strain on families. This wasn't lost on contemporary feminists like Vera Dewey, librarian at the Women's Service Library, whose 1949 book, Daughters of Britain, is one of the earliest post-war attempts to assess women's contribution during the Second World War. The idea behind mass mobilisation, she notes, was that no skilled person was to do what could be done by an unskilled person, and no man was to do what could be done by a woman. Simple enough in theory, but to show how onerous this could be in practice, she quotes from a speech given in the House of Commons on the 24th of September 1943 by Malcolm McCorquodale, the Joint Parliamentary Secretary in the Ministry of Labour and National Service. An honourable member told me a story which, with his permission, I will tell the House. With regard to a man who had permission from his firm to go to work at 8 o'clock instead of 7. A new foreman wished to take away this privilege, and he asked the man why he could not come on at 7 o'clock like the others. His answer was that he had to get the baby up and get it to its granny's. The foreman asked why his wife could not do it, and the man replied that she had to get up at 5:30 to go to another factory at 6 o'clock. Then the foreman inquired whether the grandmother could not get up a little earlier to receive the child, only to be told that the grandmother did not come back from her night shift until 7 o'clock. So that's back into that thing of that money management thing that went around recently. It's like, you people.
Yeah, you just don't know.
Let's not have a world that works like that, shall we?
Yeah.
Let's get some leftist rage.
Yeah, let's have some more. Another revolution. It's time.
Yes, another revolution.
I like this new. There's been another thing's gone around this week on the subject of leftist revolutions. Resulting in the weekend. There's been something. Rutger Bergman shared something on Twitter about how love and empathy, like not basically don't punch a right-wing person. So peaceful protest is 3.5% more effective than aggressive. So right. The extinction, if the next radical left revolution is one filled with Extinction Rebellion style protesting, which is non-violent and full of love for humanity, it might just work.
Ooh, that's good. Let's talk about the BBC in the 50s. This is about someone Bakewell. Let's see, Joan Bakewell. Once she asked Derek Amour, the BBC's head of news, why there were no female newsreaders. He replied that 1, their voices were too shrill, 2, their clothes would distract viewers, and 3, if there was a serious catastrophe, they wouldn't be able to keep their emotions hidden. 1950s.
The too shrill thing is quite interesting because having started reading Mary Beard, I've not got to the end of it, the Women and Power, because you sort of read a bit and think about it. But it talks about women's voices being portrayed as naggy and lowering your voice an octave is a thing to do and all this kind of jazz. And there was a thing on there was a woman on Question Time the other day. There was a clip going around I saw on Facebook with her being visibly and shakenly angry about knife crime and the death of...
Yeah.
She was a black woman, a black mother, and she was visibly just full of rage and passion, and loads of the comments was, oh, she sounds like a fishwife from, it's like that sort of, that idea that women's voices are shrill. And Mary Beard's argument, looking at it through history, is that that's what we've been taught to think that, rather than responding to that in a, why is it less authoritative?
What is a fishwife?
I don't know. It's a phrase used, which is like, I don't know. I don't know. It
I would like to
probably
know
has
what
origin in something being at a,
I'm
I
sure
don't know,
it's
fish
horribly-
market going, come and get your cod. I don't know what it is.
Well, I was just going to look up the definition just to...
Let's do
a
it.
coarse-mannered woman who is prone to shouting.
That's me.
Or a woman who sells fish.
I remember Andre once me arguing with him about something, and he told me I was nothing but a Balkan witch.
Yes. This
It's
book
better
doesn't
than a
go far
fishwife.
back. Doesn't go back to the witches. It only goes back
It doesn't.
100 and so odd years, unfortunately.
That
but
would be a whole new window of...
I bet there were some
hell.
bloody brilliant witches.
I bet there were. I like the T-shirt that goes round. It's like, we're the great-great-granddaughters of the witches you didn't manage to burn. There's a T-shirt you can wear. It's got something to be said for it. I've got some fierce women.
So a fierce woman.
A fierce women. So the Fierce Women is a card game. I'm going to read the bit off the back because I think it reads nicely. It says, fierce women have made great contributions to society in the fields of science, culture, politics, art, feminism and human rights. This social card game is dedicated to these women. Fierce women. May we know them. May we raise them. May we be them. That's what it says on the back of the card. Are you ready? It's also made in Croatia with love. It's one of those crowdfunders I've monitored for ages and done absolutely nothing about getting, just hovered over the buy button. And then I found them in my local shop, so I bought them. So then inside we have 60 cards of fierce women. I'm just randomly selecting. Vera Rubin. One of the most important cosmological discoveries of the 20th century, unfairly overlooked for a Nobel Prize, was made by Rubin. By measuring the rotation of distant galaxies, she provided some of the first evidence for dark matter.
Excellent. Hey, I've heard of Vera Rubin because of reading my book. So there we go.
Have you?
Yes.
Have we got some fierce, bloody, brilliant women overlap?
Yeah, I should think so.
One would hope
I think they might even have nicked them all out of this book. Listen, here's one. Here's one. Here's a good point made by Anne Oakley in 1974. Saying Oakley attacked the idea starting to be floated by male sociologists that men did more around the house than they used to. She expressed frustration at the way no one suggested that the domestic incompetence of men might be a result of insufficient experience.
Good point.
I think it's just we're wired differently, so I just can't do it. That's why you. We were having this conversation around the table the other day with a bunch of
Croatian women. Croatian men are very good at pretending they're undomesticated because they don't like anyone to know that they can cook, but actually they're bloody weird. There's a lot of male hubris in this country. But anyway,
why wouldn't you want to cook as a man? Like you get loud and hot, and you get to like throw things, and why wouldn't you
things with big knives?
Cut stuff. Yeah, you get to use a knife. That's very. I'll tell you, since I started eating fruit in the morning, and it's just every morning, first thing you do, knife. It's like, it just feels like, right, I'm alive. I'm using a knife every day. I'm thinking of getting, So why would you want to kind of let shirk that?
The counterpoint in this conversation was examples of women who go, no, I've never cooked. So you get this like there's sort of like the absolute, the activist is like, no, not only does my husband do housework, he does all the housework. Which again, we're aiming for equality here. Shall I do a fierce one?
Yeah.
Let's go. I've never heard of this woman. I'm not pre-reading these either. So anyway, Nellie Bly. Do you know her? She's the
Dunno.
most famous female journalist and reporter of her time. She was known for her record-breaking trip around the world in 72 days and an expose in which she got herself admitted to an asylum for 10 days to investigate reports of brutality and neglect at the Women's Lunatic Asylum.
Good work, Nelly.
She just got on with it. But what's critical here is that it was 1864 to 1922 that she existed.
Flipping
So-
hell.
A long time ago. She weren't waiting for permission.
Now we know what that was like.
Yeah.
Here's a nice little thing from this quote anyway. I've highlighted it. I'm just going to read it out. Obscene is not the picture of a naked woman who exposes her pubic hair, wrote the philosopher Herbert Marcuse in an essay on liberation, but that of a fully clad general who exposes his medals rewarded in a war of aggression.
Yeah.
Boom.
Boom.
I don't know what that's got to do with women, so I don't know.
Well, the idea of nudity being in some way offensive, I find, or obscene, is a bit of an odd one. But
Obscenity.
obscenity.
I'm glad. I mean, it's good that we don't. That's not really grounds for anything particularly anymore.
No.
There's no banned films anymore, are there? Like, it's just all. Just don't do any child.
Yeah, but there are all these
pornography,
like
but apart from
free the
that-
nipple things on. Yeah, it's something about women's nipples can't be shown, but men's can, or something. I don't know.
Well,
It's
they-
like, I don't
they
really
are
pay.
different. They are different.
I don't pay
It's a
that much
different meaning.
attention to. That's not my.
I sometimes I think if your biggest problem is not being allowed to walk around naked, then I'm not sure your priorities are quite right. It's like it's bigger fish to fry. It's like, is that really damaging you that you can't? I mean, it's not that comfortable, is it? Nudism. Don't know.
Well, it
We've been
depends where
watching
you are.
Jonathan. We've been watching Jonathan Creek, which is actually very good.
I like Jonathan Creek.
It's like I remember enjoying it, but I only saw a handful of them. But they're on Netflix, so we've just been watching them, and it's the pace is a bit funny and it's all a bit blurry, but it's very creative. Lots of things, right? But then it's got that. I think now stories. You have to go a bit deeper, like do a bit more research and understanding. Whereas I think when we weren't a bit more aware of, I don't know, people cross-dressing or nudists or like whatever
Yeah,
it is, it was these are sort of sprinkled as just a bit of colour into a story without any depth. But it means that you sort of get this slightly more sort of colourful tapestry. But it's kind of, you sort of see things now that are just casually thrown in. You're like, that's... we know a lot more about that now, and you can really just throw that in without knowing a bit more about it now, I don't think. Not that doesn't still happen in plenty. I feel that I still feel that watching, Curb Your Enthusiasm, where Larry David will just throw in something about suicide or something about these things that just, because he obviously has no actual real understanding of what that means. So it's just used to kind of in this really sort of, but it's for lols, and you're not supposed to think about anything too deeply. You're just supposed to look at the service.
Did you just say it's for lols?
Yes. Let's have a woman.
So, well, they're all women. Apart
I
from,
know,
well,
let's have
that
another
last
woman.
one was another different woman. Should we have this one? This is quite dramatic. They're nice cards. I shall should definitely have a link. They're nice. They're well illustrated. Francois de Bon, maybe. I've never been taught French. Anyway, writer and pioneer of the feminist movement in France, she coined the term ecofeminism in her book Feminism or Death in 1974. According to her, the patriarchal system presents an immediate death threat to humanity. Feminism, on the other hand, can restore the planet to the humanity of tomorrow. 1920 to 2005.
We've known this for every time.
I'm going to wear it as a badge now.
Every time we
Francois.
worry about the environment as though it's some new problem, we've known it's
Yeah.
capitalism. It's patriarchy. It's colonialism. We've known this for decades, and we don't seem to be able to change it. We just did the 80s instead. Cocaine. I know everything. I'm gonna do everything. And then 90s. But what the fuck? We've known this environmental situation for a very long fucking time.
But I think maybe more of us know now, or more of us are acknowledging it, or I don't know.
What annoys me about that is we've known why for ages.
Yeah.
We've known what the crux of it is for ages.
And we still know that until we get until everybody's living in more equal circumstances, that is one of the linchpins to actually moving forward in a way that, like you were saying, all the things we're using, we're burning carbon to make our lives nicer and to make other people's lives nicer. And it's not all of it is just waste for waste's sake.
Yeah.
But unless we achieve unless we up that bottom rung, there's no moving forward.
I just think if we need to pull down that flipping top rung, don't we?
Totally.
Stop hoarding everything. There's enough for everyone now. We're not living in some scarce environment. We're not living in... Stop telling us we're in a period of scarcity. There is so much abundance, but it is all being hoarded. And God's sake, stop making us fight over scraps. It's just...
Billionaires.
You people are... just seeing AOC and talking to that guy who's... They're charging, $8,000 for the AIDS drug that costs $7 in Australia, and saying you took the public paid for all the research that you have built this on, and now you're fleecing them. It's just so immoral and so.
But Big Pharma, you remember that Wellcome research I did, and I interviewed that guy who's a massive pharma lobbyist, and he's just it's so exactly what you're saying. So much drugs research comes from publicly funded research, and then the pharmaceuticals, or even the fact that they're contributing to a student in a publicly funded university. You don't just it's just because you bought them a machine doesn't mean you get to keep all the knowledge. Anyway, so maybe so. Am I an eco-feminist? Is that what I am?
I think
Can I
that's
have a new
pretty
label?
much what I would imagine that you would want the badge. So let's do it, because that's your two prongs, isn't it?
It is my two prongs.
Your two eco-feminist. Oh no.
Yeah, made a breakthrough.
No wonder I'm frustrated with the world. I'm talking to a flipping eco-feminist every week. I need to talk to someone, a white man. Well, I've got a Michael here who's interested in stuff I'm interested in for the rest of the time.
I've got 2 years on a podcast nearly, and I've finally understood and got my phrase.
I know what a label is.
I know
what a label are.
I'm having a badge. Yes. I'm happy now. You can say whatever you want.
You're to throw that Balkan Witch badge in the fire and arise renewed. Eco-feminist. New Labour's attitude to women was confusing. Harriet Harman might have been the first ever minister for women, but the fact that she was also Secretary of State for Social Security gave the impression that the women's job wasn't a proper one. When Joan Ruddock became Harman's deputy, it was only on the basis that she wasn't paid. This put her in a position, as Harman notes, of having to fight for equal pay for women, while her own role was deemed unworthy of remuneration. And that's in the 90s.
That's a great little story.
Yes.
All these things, all these snippets are great for filing away for when you're having a discussion with somebody and they go, yeah, but what about? And you can go, well, actually.
Did you know?
Did you know? Oh, yeah. Maybe the fierce women and the bloody brilliant women should get together and do like a quotes card set.
Have you got Diane Abbott in there? Shall we end on Diane Abbott?
Oh, I don't think so, but yes,
No.
let's celebrate her. Let's celebrate poor Diane Abbott, who gets beaten by everybody. Beaten up, not beaten. Beaten up by all sorts of people. Give me some Diane Abbott.
In 1987, Diane Abbott made history by becoming the first black woman to hold a seat in the House of Commons. Born in London in 1953, the daughter of a welder and a nurse who had migrated from Jamaica, she went to grammar school where she was the only black girl in her class, then read history at Newnham College, Cambridge, where she was the only black woman in the university, not from a private school, despite having been told by her history teacher that she wasn't up to it and accused of copying someone else's work when she got an A grade in an English assignment.
Bloody hell.
People simply didn't think I could do it, that I could be elected as a black woman. But I learned a long time ago that you just have to get on with it. You can't let racism hold you back from what you want to achieve. That's how brilliant you have to be to just get level. Or not even level.
The Chris Kenyon's father helped campaign for Diane Abbott's first election. Little bit of personal story. He was telling me about it one time. Anyway, she is a woman who gets so much. She just gets. Do you remember that thing about her drinking the can of gin and tonic on the train? She just gets so much abuse. She can't do a thing. So it's the thing when you talk about sort of feminism and patriarchy. You know, as a white woman, I have to remember that I'm privileged. You know, it's like you've just got to be aware of the level of privilege you have. I think just check it to see if Diane's made it into this set of cards, which is why I'm slightly detracted.
Well, I don't know if there's I guess we could just there is a let's end on Margaret Thatcher, who the word brilliant doesn't have to mean that we like them. But if you don't like Margaret Thatcher, it may
offend you.
It may encourage you to know that the popular story that she invented Mr. Whippy ice cream while at Lions seems, sadly, to be a myth.
That is a good end.
No, it was apparently she had a very supportive husband. Like Dennis Thatcher, I think was instrumental in her being able to do that. So the men I have to help. We've got to, it's not enough to fight from underneath. You've also got to have people pulling you up.
Yeah, definitely what we said about allies. I have an anecdote about a Margaret and Dennis Thatcher at a dinner party, because obviously some of the people that I've met over the years, one of Andre's friends, were at a dinner party where they were there, and obviously she'd warned him that if she started repeating, if she was getting a little forgetful, and he was sitting at the table, she was telling a story, and then she started telling the same story again, and he just went repeating. Apparently.
Oh God.
I wasn't there. That's gossip.
Gossip.
It's good gossip though. I like it.
Thanks for listening. If you like the podcast, go to grandpodcast.com and you can subscribe there, and that would be wonderful. Then you won't miss the next one. Where can people find you, Ivanka, if they can't get enough of you?
People can find me on at at Ivanka on Twitter.
At Ecovanka Feminamagic on Twitter. But what can people do with you on Twitter? Will you reply to their tweets, or you?
I do.
You can engage.
I think. Yeah,
She's engaging.
I do
She's
engage
on Twitter. You should do it.
I do.
Hi.
I mean, if Ivanka Trump has been doing something particularly heinous, or Donald Trump has been doing anything particularly heinous, and I get too many notifications, sometimes I might miss.
So basically, most of the time, then.
But not really. I think people are catching on.
Okay.
But yes, I do like a little bit of Twitter engagement. I like that.
Go for it. You can find me at michaelforestmusic.com. and goodtohear.co.uk. Buy my apps, patreon.com/Michael Forrest. But sponsor me to live my life and stay free. I mean, this is week 2 of my freedom. Come and see how it's going on. And you can support the podcast on Patreon if you'd rather do that.
Yes.
And our current supporters, thank you, Sharon. Thank you, Annette. And thank you, not in advance, we'll thank you after. We will never thank you in advance.
I'm wondering if this sales technique is going to work.
I don't know. It's $1. Do you want us to do this or not? Fucking hell. No, okay. How would you sell Patreon?
I don't know. I'll have to think about it.
Just look, I'm going to
talk to Nick Harvey. He can write me a marketing plan for how to get more Patreons. Then I'll do that.
Marketing plan. Well, look, it's all about personal connection, isn't it? It's all about, like, maybe we can, like, what would you, I don't know. Maybe we should do like a mini episode where we invite people to ask questions and be involved, and that could be a Patreon thing. If we could sort of make an extra 15 minutes or something and do it on Google Chat, and people could ask questions or like throw stuff in, that could be a Patreon. Yeah, join in.
But what you forgot to mention was, and what about this thing? Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. Like, maybe we could try and do something like that. What do you think? Like, would you support us then? Ideally, we're already doing quite a lot of work on this. So it's sort of like having to do extra work just to, it's sort of like we end up in the same place. So that's why we're just asking for you. Because there's no ads on this, have you noticed? Apart from ads for things we're doing and random card game things.
And electric bicycles and things like that.
I mean, we advertise,
and,
but we don't get paid.
Jobs.
We don't get... And restaurantsbrighton.co.uk/jobs. You can do that. I mean, that's the other way you can support the podcast. Just come and find out the stuff we're doing.
Yeah,
and help us, because I am on the run from the feds. The feds being the evil, cruel hand of capitalism. Anything else?
No, I think we've done quite. Oh, right. I think we've gone on about Patreons quite a lot. But if you do, if you don't feel compelled to engage with the Patreon idea, ratings and reviews are incredibly useful. Little 5 stars on the app that you're listening on now, just while you're listening. Done.
If you just think more people would benefit from hearing the podcast itself, and then hopefully as a second degree benefit, more people will know about us and it will grow, and then maybe someone will come and say, we'll give you £1,000 to advertise our bicycle. We can do it that way if you want, spread the word, or just cut out the middleman, keep this secret, keep it the podcast secret, but support us in other ways. Anyway, that's us done for this week. So we'll see you next time. Take care now. Bye.
Bye.